Check. 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 1, 2. Check. Check.
Good night.
I'll be right back.
Good. This room looks nice.
Check.
Oh my goodness. Ugh.
Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2. Check. Check. 1, 2. Check. 1, 2.
Okay. That would be good. Thank you, you too.
Let me send it close.
That's how it goes.
Don't forget to use your microphone thing tonight, because we can have an audience until they leave. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wrightington Township Board of Education. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Bennett.
I'm here.
Mrs. Fiore.
Here.
Mrs. Menzo.
Here.
Mr. Peach.
Here.
Mrs. Pogorski.
Here.
Mrs. Ryan.
Here.
Mrs. Wolf.
Here.
Dr. Susiella.
Here.
Ms. Hample.
Here. We can all rise for the flag salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm first.
Yes.
Thought he was going first. All right, so we're going to start off talking about the board goals. So in the September meeting, we had met with Judith Wilson, who was our consultant, to go through our board retreat. And from that, we had gotten some feedback on things that we can work on as a board. We were going to go through it tonight with Gwen Thornton, our field service rep for New Jersey school boards, but congratulations to Gwen, she has been promoted and she was not available to come until January. So I'm taking a stab at it. So you can see in your yellow envelope, there's a packet from board goals. So on here, the first document is the proposed goals for this year. And they are in the same format as what we did last year with Gwen, of having focus goals along with continued goals or evergreen goals. And then for reference, there's the goals from 21-22 in the back. So take a minute to look over it. In the 23-24 goals, the items in blue are items that I changed. Okay, so the first one that I have for focus goal is just an update from the RTEA contract settling agreement to this year, settle an agreement with the RTAA before the end of the school year as a new goal for that one. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Goal number 2, Improve the use of data to monitor progress and drive decision-making. Examples of this that we gave last month were school level goals, the data conversation guide, attendance at extra academic offerings such as clubs, homework rooms, iReady running records, NJSLA, retention recruitment or HR data, HIB records and code of conduct infractions, mental health survey, and climate survey. And lastly, and we don't have to include the examples in the goals if you don't want to, but I just wanted to capture everything that we had talked about last week. And the last one was provide and share opportunities for board training and professional development. And then I'll just go on the number 4, the continued goals. Another item we had was to focus on closing the loop on communicating the end results of some of our efforts. And the rest of them stayed the same. And we can discuss those too if we want to remove any of the longer term goals. So I'll open it up to you all for thoughts. Camille and I, we both collaborated on this over the weekend too, just FYI.
Example. The goals that you put together here, this was based off of those those surveys that we did for that.
Yes.
Okay.
So each board member filled out the survey, and there was a couple of areas in the back, we had a lot of strengths, and there was a couple of areas of focus areas. So I used those to work on the goals, which was something we had talked about last time.
I'll just add a comment. I'm pleased to see the addition in number 4. I think that was a good solve there, so supportive of that.
Thank you. Is everyone good with that? Okay.
Chair, my only comment, and I realized I wasn't here last month. My only comment is I don't see enough of an emphasis on just academic excellence or academic achievement. And just in light of especially in light of math scores, we're going to hear more about tonight.
Right. So number 7 is more like what we can do as board members. The academic achievement is more of a district goal, and that's in the presentation tonight from Dr. Hart.
Okay.
So number 7 is the create the supports and structures for a sharp, clear focus on academic achievement, i.e. remove barriers that take away from education while continuing the integration of social emotional learning across the curriculum and providing equitable access to mental health supports as needed for our students and staff. I'll throw out there number 6, which is to continue to upgrade and refine safety and security measures to ensure student and staff safety. Just wondering how everyone feels about that. It's always something that we talk about in finance facilities if we actually need to keep this as a goal.
I think it's one of those evergreen goals. Paramount, right? Safety and security for everybody in the schools.
So keep it?
I would advocate for keeping it.
Okay. All right, so we've got 6 and 7. It sounds like 4 is okay with the addition of focusing on closing the loop. For the public, number 4 is to continue to improve communication and expand community engagement with all stakeholders. Our efforts will continue our focus on transparency, broadening our efforts beyond our locality, highlighting and celebrating district accomplishments with an emphasis on our sustainability greening initiatives, and developing collaborations with our local government entities. Focus on closing the loop and communicating the end results. All right, so number 5 then, to set budget parameters that effectively plan for enrollment growth, maintain the depth, breadth, and quality of the educational and co-curricular program that are both sustainable and fiscally accountable to the community, evaluating and assessing our redistricting plan to accommodate shifts in student population. So we're good with all the evergreen? All right. Keep my backwards trajectory going. Number 3, which is a focus goal, provide and share opportunities for board training and professional development. Okay. And then number 2, improve the use of data to monitor progress and drive decision-making. Do we want to keep these examples in here? Okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's good to have the example. And just in general, I like the approach of having focus goals and then continued goals. I mean, who's ever gonna say no to not having safety and security as a goal? So it just makes sense. So when we changed that a year ago, I think that just doing that in general, moving in that direction is really a good way to do these goals. But yeah, I agree we should have that one as well.
okay. And then settle an agreement with the RTAA before the end of the school year.
Should be careful.
So sounds like everybody's good with them. Any additions, anything else that you want to see?
Do we, for example, are you viewing them all as equal weight or are they in priority order? Because if they were in priority order, I would consider the creation, support, and structures to show clear academic achievement. We could move that up in the continued goals, similar to the way it was last year. To keep it at top of mind.
Okay, did I move it?
Yeah.
Yeah, last year it was
Yeah.
3. It was the first on the
Okay.
continued goals.
I don't know. Oh, you know why? I don't know. I don't know why that happened, but okay, so, and then we have communication second, budget, and then, so really it's just 7 should be 4, and the rest,
Correct. In my opinion.
Are they, which makes sense, but are they in order of importance? I didn't look at it like that, maybe they are. I'm not sure.
I don't think so, but just if you're gonna read them, are you gonna zone out by the end?
I don't care about those. I don't necessarily, I won't say order of importance, but just rather priority, like where do we need to focus energy, time, et cetera, as a board?
All right, so, we'll get these finalized and Jason will help me get them uploaded. All right. Short, sweet. Thanks, everybody. Dr. Howard, I'll turn it over to you.
Larry, could you bring up the student assessment presentation? Thank you.
Yes.
Do you want to explain what you do with
Of
this?
course, yeah. So this evening, the leadership team is here. Our central office curricular staff, as well as our school principals, are going to talk about several pieces of data with you tonight. Not only our NJSLA administration from last spring, but in addition to that, we're also going to look at our iReady student achievement data, some writing benchmarks. The curriculum supervisors are going to give an overview of district-wide data. And something that we really enjoyed last year was hearing from each building principal in areas that are going to be focus areas for each building over the course of the year this year. Each principal has also put together a brief report about last year's focus area and what they noticed in the NJSLA or iReady data for this year. But as way of introduction, I included in your yellow folder the data conversation guide that the district created last year. And this is a guide that's widely used across the district by teaching staff members, administrative staff members, myself, and can be used with you here tonight. You're going to see a lot of data, and the data conversation guide is really for you to monitor your own thinking about what you're seeing as each one of the principals and supervisors presents our student achievement data. And the prompts are really questions, and they're questions for you to consider, for you to think about. And what this should help you do, like it helps us as administrators and teachers, is have a clear, focused conversation about what we notice in student achievement data. So it prompts you with some questions, some things that you notice, some things that you don't notice, right? Things that you can't tell from the data, like what does the data not show you, right? Which is more information that we might want to gather. And then there's a 2-column chart that asks for assets and challenges. What are the things that we know we're doing really well? And what are the things that challenge the district in terms of academic achievement? And next steps and action plans. So the administrators and the teachers do this as an exercise to collaborate, to discuss student achievement, and then ultimately create goals. Administrative goals, each teacher has a professional development plan. They also have SGO goals, student growth objective goals. And this is what we use our data conversation guide for. Funny, it's not dissimilar. I was talking to Ms. Pouch last week when we had Graham Fletcher, one of our presenters during our in-service days. This is not dissimilar to what we ask our students to do in mathematics tasks, right? We have something called 3-act tasks where we ask them to describe what they notice about how numbers are working. What are you wondering about how numbers are working? How might you go about solving this problem with these numbers? So this actually, we kind of made the connection. It transcends not only students using it, but also, our staff using it in terms of our student achievement data, but our kids are actually using it when they look at math problems as well. So this is for you. Each one of you have a copy in your folder. Feel free, as you see the presentation tonight, feel free to track some of your thinking on this graphic organizer, and this might help you organize some of the questions that you might have for us. It might organize some of your own thinking wrapped around student achievement data. So that's for you. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Brown to talk about language arts.
So we have many wonderful things to celebrate tonight. We'll start with 3rd grade and a little bit of housekeeping. The structure of these charts will be the same through language arts and then math. They can be slightly difficult to read. They're in a continuum with a gradation of purple. So it's hard to tell one from the other, especially as you get to the left with the lighter colors. So on the left-hand side are the lowest scores, the very lightest purple, the one that did not yet meet expectations. And then as you move to the right, you get through the partially met, approached, met, and then exceeded expectations. So we're looking to always hover in that very dark, deep, almost black purple, and then the kind of lavender color, which is where we consistently are throughout the whole presentation. The numbers on the bottom are connected to the colors, but they're not necessarily under the color that they belong to. They are in line with the key underneath with the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you have any questions as I'm going through, just stop me and I can connect you to the correct level and the correct color and the correct number. So 3rd grade scores, we are at a 64% meeting and exceeding rate, which is good for us. This is an improvement from last year and a solid 20% percentage points higher than the state. In 4th grade, the students are continuing to grow. They've reached a 75% meeting and exceeding rate this year, and they have the added benefit of rate. It's not working.
Sorry.
I can see it, but I can't, it doesn't. Is that just the way it is, or is that? The pointer.
Oh.
Dr. Brown, well, I just want to make sure, do you have the microphone on the green dot?
No.
Just check.
It's now. But it's not.
I don't think it'll work.
Yeah. So we'll do without it.
Would you do it to point to something?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
I need those like really, remember the long hands with the finger, the stick, I need one of those. So we should be very proud of 4th grade, and they're 26% in the exceeding expectations range, which this means to me, as I interpret this, is that they're doing a really nice job serving the needs of the students that need the most help and the students that are coming in already on grade level and just need to grow from where they are. 5th grade, they're continuing to grow, they're growing their scores here, and they've reached a 77% meeting and exceeding expectations. They've held on to that nice section of exceeding expectations as well as they take away from those did not meet areas on the left. And then sixth grade, they are up substantially from last year. They're a solid 20 percentage points above the state at a 70% meeting and exceeding expectations. Seventh grade is holding steady with a similar number at 75% meeting and exceeding, and they've got one of the best exceeding expectation rates in the district this year at 32% of their students exceeding expectations on this particular assessment. And eighth grade at a 69% meeting and exceeding. They worked very hard this year, and this is a substantial increase from their scores from last year. They are also well above the state average. Now, I won't stop for questions here, because most of your questions are answered when we go to the longitudinal scores, and then after we do this, then I'll stop for questions if you have any. So this is where it gets even better. So the red arrows are where our scores were pre-pandemic. And if you look at each grade level, and these are our students as different groups of them move through each grade level. So we're really assessing more our instruction, our curriculum, how it's implemented, because each of these bars represents a different group of students, and every group of students is different. So if you look at the red arrow, that's our pre-pandemic score. Fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh are now back to either the same or better than they were pre-pandemic. So for these grade levels to recover from something that disruptive in 2 years is really very impressive and is a huge credit to our teaching staff and the amount of effort on the part of the students to close those gaps that occurred when school was disrupted and we had to do things differently than normal. If you look across this chart from third all the way to eighth grade, every single grade level has made progress and has improved their score from last year. So even grade levels that aren't back where they were before have made substantial growth. If looking at eighth grade, there's a substantial difference between last year's scores and this year's scores, as is third grade, so they are well on their way to being back to our pre-pandemic rates. Now this one is the same group of students as they move through the grade levels. So looking at our third graders into fourth grade and our fourth grade, and our seventh grade into eighth grade, the two bookends there. Let me go back, I missed my filter. The third grade going into fourth grade and then the sixth grade going into seventh grade. Those groups of students, as they move through the grade levels, they showed really substantial growth. There's a really big difference between last year's scores and this year's scores, which is wonderful to see. Now, fourth and fifth grade, and then seventh and eighth grade, they are also showing nice incremental growth. So we know that they're getting these students to where they need to be year after year. And then fifth grade to sixth grade, they took a slight step back. We're only talking about 3 percentage points there. That's nothing to be concerned about. And that particular group is the one that transitions into the middle school. And certain groups of students adjust to those expectations of the middle school different than others. This particular group had a little bit more of difficulty trying to adjust to those expectations, but 3 percentage points is not something to be concerned about. We'll watch them into next year when we have their seventh grade scores to ensure that they're growing. Now, we don't have pre-pandemic scores on this particular slide because for most of these groups of students, there aren't any. They're in those gap years where we didn't test. So looking back to our eighth grade, they were at a 71% pre-pandemic. So they have fully recovered. And our seventh grade scores, when they took the assessment last, which is the last group that we had, they were also at 71%. So they also have recovered. So looking at both longitudinally across grade levels and then across cohorts, in almost every single instance, we have recovered and are back to where we were before, which is a really nice place to start this particular year because now we can start to move forward and grow. I really wish we could have seen, because we put some really nice programs in place, what would have happened if we could have just blended in and moved through with those programs without the disruption, but we're ready to start that now. Do you have any questions before I move into subpopulations? Excellent, so there is more good news. So here are our proficiencies by subpopulation of race, and at the bottom are the percentages of Readington students that fall into each one of these populations. The smaller the population, the more difficult it is to interpret the data because a student or two could make a very large percentage point difference. But looking across this graph, every single one of our subpopulations have made growth this past year on this particular assessment. Our proficiency by gender is also moving forward nicely. Both males and females made the exact same 7 percentage point growth from our last assessment. The males are back to where they were pre-pandemic, and our females are very, very close. Proficiency by program. So we have our economically disadvantaged students on the left under free and reduced lunch heading. There's a slight dip there. I did investigate this. It's not tracking back to any particular grade level building group of any kind. So we'll continue to investigate this and see if we can put some plans in place to help these particular groups of students. Our economically disadvantaged group is growing in population from year to year. That can affect these numbers. Also, the idea that these groups of students don't always stay the same. Students can move in and out of this program, and so we may not be assessing the same group of students this year that we did last year, and that may account for the differences. But we'll continue to try to put some programs in place to assist them. Our Section 504 students are doing very well, which means to me our teachers are doing an excellent job differentiating instruction and accommodating their needs in the classroom. Our ELL population, unfortunately, no one passed this year, but it's not a cause for panic. You can look back to 2016 and 17 where this happened previously. These groups of students are only in the program for a limited amount of time, and the whole point is for them to graduate and then not be counted in this group anymore. So the past year with that 37% passage rate, we had a lot of students that had been in the district for a while. They were just about to graduate out of the program. They were really well set to take this assessment. Last year, we had a lot of those students graduate out of the program. Now they're only being counted as part of the Gen Ed population. They're not being counted in this ELL population as well. And then we had quite a few port of entry students who came in not speaking any English at all. Some not even in the beginning of the year, but more into the late fall, early winter. So they just didn't have the exposure to the English language to be able to handle an assessment like this one on their own. And we're not allowed to give them a language arts assessment in Spanish. They had to take it in English. They just weren't ready yet, and I think they're going to be ready this year. So we'll see a difference in that number, I hope, when this comes around again. Special ed rates are holding steady, and our gen ed rates are back to where they were pre-pandemic, with 82% of our gen ed population passing the assessment, which is a really nice place to be. And that means that our program that we put together, the layers of it and the depth are working for our students. Any questions?
How many students fall into the EL?
I want to say around 30, but I would need Stacy Beagle's help. 30. Anything else?
Stacy, go ahead. You first.
Overall, so we have gen ed 82%. Did it show anywhere overall what our percentage was of passing?
You mean overall for the district?
Yes.
That's mostly our gen ed scores, because gen ed would include our economically disadvantaged, our section 504, our ELL students, and all the students without any accommodations or services at all.
Okay. Thank you.
So where you would get like an overall percentage, it's not here by district, but like overall percentages would be more in the grade level. Like that is 8th grade, every single child in that grade level.
Okay.
That's including both gen ed, special ed, our ELL population, everybody.
Thank you.
So you're asking good questions. Maybe if you're looking at your data conversation guide, you've noticed some assets, some challenges, some things that the data's not telling you that maybe you want the administration to investigate in terms of how we're moving forward with certain things. Just want to bring you back to that. That's all. Thank you, sorry, Stacy.
That's okay. So now we're moving into the iReady reading diagnostic, which is really very valuable to us. The students take this 3 times a year. So we get the information more in real time. It's more of a formative assessment where we could use this data to shift our instruction and then give the students what they need. So on your left, you have a progress to annual typical growth in blue, and that's a median number. So they'll put all of our students together from the lowest to the highest score, and then right there in that middle student is the score that we use here. It's usually more accurate than a straight average. You are looking for a student to make 1 year's worth of growth in a school year, which makes sense. That will put them at 100% growth. That's typical. If you get over 100%, it means not only did you make your 1 year's growth, but you also closed gaps that students had of things they didn't master before. The district as a whole is sitting at 168% growth this year. They not only made the growth they needed, they made almost another half a year's, more than half a year's growth in addition to.
Well said.
And then on the left, you have the actual placement of students, and you can see that like the red is our 2 grade levels below and 3 grade levels below, and you can see how very small those numbers are. Then here's the actual numbers for each individual grade level, K to 8. Now you don't want to try and make a straight comparison to the NJSLA scores because this is just reading, and NJSLA would include both reading and writing, so it would shift the numbers a little bit. But these are pretty well in line. With our younger grade levels, K through 4, showing very, very few students who are 2 or more grade levels below the grade that they're in. And then moving forward, we've got proficiencies that are close to what they were on the NJSLA.
Quick question,
Mm-hmm.
the 8th grade,
Yes.
is that you might have just said this, does that include like the Algebra 1 students or it's just the 8th grade?
This is just language arts, so
Oh,
this
that's
is
right.
different from math, so this includes everybody.
I jumped ahead.
It's really, that is a very tricky thing to manage, and I am so glad that I don't have to do that.
Question.
Yes.
There is a fairly strong downward trend by grade. Is that something to be expected, or is there any concern
Yes,
here?
that is an excellent question. You should put that on your data composition. So K through 2 is basically straight decoding. We just want them to understand their letters and sounds and be able to read the words. Once they hit 3rd grade, now you've shifted from learning to read to reading to learn. And so now you're not focused so much on decoding anymore. Now you're focused on reading with automaticity, just like you drive a car and you're not thinking about it, or you walk or you breathe and you're not even thinking about it, and you're just pulling out the information. The text gets substantially longer. Now we're not looking at like 12-page decodables with 2 lines of text, we're looking at 500-page novels. Trying to hold that much information in your head from the beginning to the end of a book is very different. So the expectations of what we want them to do in 8th grade, for example, is very, very different from what they expect them to do in kindergarten. Students that don't have strong decoding skills when they get to like late elementary, early middle school, when they don't have fluency, which is why we have such a strong focus on fluency here, they can't keep up, and that's where it all starts to fall apart. So if any of those students get snuck by with a fluency rate that's not really great, it shows up here, not in 2nd grade when we're talking about it. So these numbers have risen as we've spent more time on foundational skills and we've layered onto our programs. We use the Jennifer Sarabello books to fill in decoding gaps, fluency gaps. We went back to kindergarten and we had Nicole Maraventano add to our phonics program for even like more robust phonological awareness activities for those kids that need things just a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more. The trouble with literacy is that the program I put together for one student isn't going to work for every single student. Everybody needs something different. No one ever argues with the need for phonics, and the need for foundational skills like fluency and vocabulary, but the amount that every child needs is going to be different. So that's where we need the teachers to be as wonderful as they are and make those professional decisions to decide that this child may need to hear it 1 time, this child is going to need to hear it 10. And so we have decodables in the classrooms and decodables in the book room so that we can give them the materials they need to do that. We have our interventionists to come in and supplement even more for those students that need to hear it 10 times. But at the same time, when we're looking at our students that exceed expectations, we don't want them to hear it 10 times because they already got it the first time, and we will damage their love of reading if we make them go over the same thing over and over and over again when they got it, and then you end up with behavioral problems. So teachers really are doing a lot of magic in the classroom to walk that line of giving everybody what they need. It's a very difficult balance to find.
Thank you. I'm sorry, just so I can understand. These percentages also include the students that are within those other programs?
Yes, this would be absolutely everybody. Like NJSLA, we have the subgroups where we can separate them out and see which ones. And our gen ed population wouldn't include like the special ed population. But here, this is every child in the district in that grade level, completely unseparated. So if you're looking for a straight up district number, this is the one that's it. Anything else? You can see we have really fantastic teachers. So writing benchmarks. Again, we can't compare these numbers to iReady, we can't compare them to NJSLA because this is just strictly writing. So kindergarten scores, this is set up the same way as the NJSLA charts where the students with most need are on the left in red and the students that are excelling the most are in the green on the right. And then the percentages of passing are on the bottom. So the kindergarten numbers with the narrative writing first, that always comes first in the year, informational in the middle, and then the opinion argument is usually at the end. That's the most difficult of the three genres to write in. These numbers are to be expected in kindergarten. They did really well in information writing in the beginning, and then narrative is the first thing that they've ever written as a 5-year-old. So we expect to see growth as we move through the year. And these are the places that we see transfer. So all those phonics skills from the phonics units of study, we're looking for them to come out when they do their writing here. And in first grade, they've got really consistent scores and they ended on a high in our opinion writing at 91% meeting and exceeding. Second grade showed some nice consistent growth over the year. They struggled a little bit with informational writing, but they were able to apply the skills they learned in informational writing to the opinion writing piece, and they ended the year at 84% meeting and exceeding expectations. The skills that they learn in narrative transfer over into information and opinion, and the skills they learn in information will transfer over into opinion and argument. So once one genre is done, it doesn't mean that it's over. They're supposed to pull these skills throughout the year, and they do, which is why you usually see scores like this, where they're a little lower in the beginning of the year when they haven't had as much instruction, and a little higher at the end after they have. Now, fourth grade, they started at 67% with their narrative and then went to 86% with their writing. And then they dipped a little bit in opinion and argument. In fourth grade, they're starting to shift from an opinion into an argument, which is much more difficult. So now they have to support their opinion with text evidence, which is like a whole new thing that they're throwing in here. Then once they get to fifth grade, you can see how they start to master these skills. They started out at 80% and then ended with an 89 at the argument genre. In sixth grade, they get a whole new set of expectations again. So now they moved through their narrative, they're improving in their information to 70-80%. Now when they get to sixth grade, they're looking at counter arguments, thesis statements, not just text evidence, but the strongest text evidence. So now they've got a whole new round of new learning that they've been exposed to here. But then as they go to seventh grade, you can see as they start to master this, they've got a 96% meeting and exceeding in information, and then an 89% at argument writing. And then they continue to grow through eighth grade, where they ended the year at a 94% meeting or exceeding expectations in that argument piece. So those students, writing-wise, are very, very prepared to go on to grade school. Do you have any questions? Then I will hand you over to Ms. Pouch for math.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Pouch. I'm the supervisor of math, science, technology, health, and PE. But tonight I'll just be presenting math and science scores for you. We'll begin as ELA did with our overall results by grade level. Again, looking for students to be in the meeting or exceeding range. Looking at third grade, we had a very successful year with 73% of our students meeting or exceeding the expectations. This is up 3 percentage points from last year, as well as significantly outperforming the state. Looking at fourth grade, we had another very successful year at 71% of the students meeting or exceeding the expectations. This was a larger jump of 10% increase from last year, as well as being almost 30% higher than the state as well. And having a very large students in the meeting with only a few students in that approaching or partially or not yet range. In fifth grade, we have a 56% meeting or exceeding rate. This is pretty consistent with last year. It's 1% different, 1% higher. But it is 16% higher than the state performance. And one of the things of note for that 3, 4, 5 band is we do look into and go very, into the details of the assessments and see what domains and what subject areas we're exceeding in or might need some reinforcement in. And for third, fourth, and fifth grade, fractions was always something that we circled back to. When we looked at the questions, those were the areas where we didn't outperform the state in, and we wanted to really look at that information. And we looked at the instruction that we provided with our new math program, we looked at the sequencing of that, and we helped the teachers with the assistance of the math coach to really focus in on those standards. And I was thrilled to see that when I looked at the evidence statements from these 3 grade levels, there was usually 2 or 3 fraction questions that we could have shown improvement on at each grade level. And looking at these results, this was the first time we had 1 fraction standard over the course of all 3 grade levels. So that was a huge amount of improvement, and it really showed the hard work and dedication that the students and the teachers are putting into gaining this information and showing such a huge achievement as that. So that was very exciting to see. As we move into 6th grade, we have a 54% meeting or exceeding rate. And in this instance where we looked at how the state did on individual questions compared to how our district did, there was only 1 evidence statement where we scored below the state on. So that this is a 14% increase from last year's score. And it was interesting to see that when we looked down to each individual question, there was really only 1 question that we scored below the state on. So the students are making great gains there with an increase from our 6th grade performance last year. 7th grade is at 44% meeting or exceeding, and this is also an increase from last year at 4%. And this is where we need to start keeping track of which students are taking the test and which students are not. Roughly the top 10% of students are not taking the 7th grade assessment. They're taking an Algebra 1 assessment as our honors students. Our advanced 7th grade math students are taking this assessment, but they haven't seen these 7th grade standards for over a year. So they're being assessed on content that we're obviously hoping that they have retained, but it's not the most recent information or standards that they have been working on during the course of the year. When we look at 8th grade, we are up to 26% meeting or exceeding, and that is an increase from 18% last year. Another thing that was of interest is that the state is performing at 18% meeting or exceeding those standards, and that didn't change. The state performed at 18% last year, and they continued to score at 18% this year, whereas we have seen a nice increase of 8%, so that we're up to our 26%, which is slightly below where we left off pre-pandemic. So every grade level, with the exception of 8th grade, just a few percentages short, has shown an increase from last year. And the 8th grade, again, there are 60% of our eighth graders are taking this assessment. The other 40% of our eighth graders are taking Algebra 1 or Algebra 2. So we're looking at a fraction of the entire population. When I take into account all eighth graders, regardless of what class they were taking, we're at a 47% passing rate.
Question on
Sure.
that slide, because I know I guess the numbers don't line up. So the 0 applies to.
To the 5. We didn't have any students in the exceeding range. And that's something that Mr. Charleston and I obviously noticed right away and is something that we're looking to address this year. When we look at Algebra 1, the state has a 35% meeting or exceeding rate, whereas our district is at 85%. This is a combination of our 7th and 8th graders, and the state is a combination of 7th, 8th graders, and high school students. So even high school students are wrapped into that state percentage. And it was interesting to, again, that in this area, the state showed no improvement. They were at 35% passing last year, and they remain at 35%. We've improved our scores by 12%, having come back from the pandemic. And in Algebra 2, this is a much smaller group. These are our students taking honors math as 8th graders, and they're taking an Algebra 2 high school level course as 8th graders. We have an 81% meeting or exceeding, whereas the state is at 54. And this is slightly down from last year. However, it trends with our scores from Algebra 1 from last year. So the same students who didn't necessarily succeed or meet or exceed the expectations for Algebra 1 continue to have that struggle as Algebra 2 students. And the percentages can also be deceiving because we're looking at such a small total. So one student can have a great impact on the scores. I'll do the same and jump into the longitudinal because that might answer some questions preemptively. When we look at the longitudinal scores, again, this is looking at one grade level, but different students every year. So this is where we're looking for trends in our curriculum, in our program, and how we're implementing the standards. Because it's a different students each year. The red arrow indicates again where we had that 2-year break where we did not take the assessment during the pandemic. And we can see that the students are doing an excellent job, and we have, compared to last year's, the one bar over from the right where we came back to take the assessment again after 2 years. You can see that some grade levels have significant jumps as 4th grade and 6th grade do, and other grade levels have smaller increments, but every grade level had made an improvement from last year's performance. And we're also seeing that some of those grade levels, such as 4th grade, is almost back to where they were pre-pandemic or when we started keeping records for the NJSLA. When we look at Algebra 1, that would again be all of our Algebra 1 students, and then at the end they kind of give that cumulative district grades 3 through 5 look, and we can see that we've made improvements across the board. And in some of them, just to give you a point of reference, when there's a difference of 5%, that's probably a total of about 7 students. 7th grade is a much larger group, so that doesn't quite hold true for them, but the rest of the grade levels are all holding true at about the same total. So to kind of give you a point of reference for a point difference of 2 or 3%, we're looking at 5 to 7 students. Again, taking a look at our cohorts so that we look at the same students over time. And we can see that last year's 4th graders compared to their 3rd grade scores have stayed very consistent, and we hope to see that trend follow them throughout their career through middle school so that they stay at that nice high 71%. When we look at 4th to fifth grade, we see a slight drop of about 3%, but again, that would be roughly be 4 or 5 students. Looking at our sixth graders and how they compared to their performance in fifth grade, they've remained very consistent. And looking at our seventh graders compared to how they performed as sixth graders, there was a significant increase of 11%. And again, our seventh graders and how they performed as eighth graders, there was a nice increase there as well. Then we start looking at much smaller groups. So looking at our grade level 6 to algebra 1, that's that group of honors students, which is a roughly 30 students, because they don't take the 7th grade or the 8th grade assessment. They take the 6th grade assessment as 6th graders and then start taking algebra 1 as 7th graders. The next bar over, where it's grade 7 to algebra 1, those would be our advanced math students, where they took 7th grade math and then didn't take the 8th grade assessment because they moved into a high school level algebra course. And we can see that both of those cohorts have remained very consistent. And again, when we look at all of the grades across the board, we are seeing that upward trend, which we're very happy to have accomplished. Questions?
I had a question. On these slides, this one and the one before it, there's no algebra 2. Is that because algebra 1 to algebra 2 kind of gets it confusing?
Yes. This is the short answer is yes. We would in-house, we can track from algebra 1 to algebra 2. When I contacted Lincoln, who usually gathers a lot of this data for us, they said that our numbers were so small it wasn't significant. And it's not significant to me. So we did take, I did go back and take a look, and that's where the statement of the students having passed algebra 1 transferring over to a lower score on the students passing algebra 2, that's where we would see that trend where we had a lower number of students passing algebra 1 last year, and then that translated into a lower number of algebra 2 students passing this past school year. Yes.
If you go back to the prior screen, for grade, why is grade 8 like this? Why is the performance? So I mean, it's very very troubling.
So grade 8, these scores you can see are, we've been working on this for quite a while. We were on a nice steady upward trajectory prior to the pandemic. We did take a step back. We're also, again, remember looking at grade 8, we're only looking at 60% of our student population. So in looking at 7th grade and 6th grade and 5th grade, if we were to pull out the top performing 40%, their numbers would look very different as well. And it is obviously something we would love to see improve. Again, Mr. Charleston and I have met, we've talked about what supports we can put in place for students, what supports we can put in place for teachers, and really focusing on that and seeing how we can grow those numbers, because we're almost back to where we were pre-pandemic. And yes, we would all like to see those numbers increase. All right, and then we'll move into our subpopulations. So the first way that we're asked to break down the numbers is by proficiency by race. And we report this out at a district level, because if we report it out at any one grade level, the numbers would be so small it would be identifying 2 students. So we're taking a look to make sure that that far bar on the right, the darkest blue, is constantly going up. And in all but one of our subpopulations, we are seeing that. The other thing to keep in mind, again, is that as this is district-wide and as students graduate outward, one bar to the next is not the same group of students. But again, seeing that upward trajectory is always very exciting to see, and we were pleased to see that as well. Looking at gender, we are at almost an even 50-50 split across the district, looking at our male and female population. And we can see that there's a 7% difference between the male and female populations. which is a national trend for mathematics. We tend to see male students performing a bit higher, and I was glad to see here that it is relatively close. In years prior, it was almost exactly the same, and we would of course love to see that return. When we look at programs such as economically disadvantaged, 504s, ELL, special ed, and then gen ed, the gen ed bars would include everyone but special ed. So some of the students who have a 504 have been pulled out into their own subcategory, but they're also incorporated into the gen ed piece. So gen ed and special ed are separated out. Here you can see that we do have some data for ELL students where ELA did not in the meeting and exceeding, and that's simply because the ELL students are allowed to take the assessment in Spanish. And they offer many of the other languages for the directions to be read aloud to them in their language, but not to take the test in their native language. So hopefully the state will catch up with that. But at the moment, all that's available is taking the mathematics assessment in Spanish. So we did have 6% of our ELL population passing the mathematics state assessment, which was very good to see. And all the other populations are on an upward trend as well. Any other questions for the state testing?
I have a question, the same one as every year. Have we been able to work with Central on how well our students are prepared when they get to the high school?
Yes, when I, at the articulation meetings, in fact, I was just talking to the high school math supervisor today, and we've set up our first articulation meeting, and that was the first thing I asked. When are we going to see how our students did as freshmen? And we've seen consistently that our, and the best I can do is ask, are we performing any differently than any of the other sending districts? Is there anything having our students stand out compared to another group, either as a positive or a negative? You know, what do I need to know? And for the last several years, it has always been the same response, is that when we look at when students take the course that has been recommended for them, they're very successful. We had a handful of students who had to move down from the course they were in, but then when we tracked it back, they had registered for a course higher than what was recommended for them. For instance, they may have signed up for an honors class instead of a CP class or a STEM class that was recommended for them, and they struggled and decided to move back into a different course. So that's the trend that I've been seeing, is that when the students register for the course that our teachers recommend them for, they do very well and they're performing as the other sending districts are. When students are registering for courses above and beyond, they struggle, and then it appears that they're moving down, but they're moving back to where they were suggested to be. And of course, we'll look to see if that trend remains the same this year.
Okay.
Just on that, are we able to compare our scores with the other districts, feeding into the high school?
As soon as they post them for us.
This is all public information?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so and according to all the new, not new, but with the CUSAC rules and all that, they have to have their presentations posted by November 15th. So we start poking around on the other districts' websites to see when they're testing presentations. Ours will be posted tomorrow.
Okay. I mean, do we do any kind of report internally about how we compare? Just be curious.
Oh, yes, internally, yes, absolutely. Last year, we gathered the information from the other sending districts to see how we compared by grade level as well as the district as a whole.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd like to, did we get to see that, or? I would like to see that.
Okay, we'll certainly bring it to Ed Tech or however. I believe last year it went to Ed Tech as well. They're not fancy colored charts, but we usually do make a table.
Thank you.
Our other piece of information that we use to guide instruction is our diagnostic results. We had wonderful success in our typical growth. As Dr. Brown had said, it remains true for math. We're looking for students to make 100% of their typical growth within their grade level, meaning that they've met their grade level expectations. Anything over 100% means that they haven't just met a grade level's worth of expectations, they've closed gaps. So looking at growth, where a student might still be struggling, if they're over that 100%, they're closing those gaps and they're gaining to where they need to be. The nice thing with the diagnostic as well is that there is no ceiling, so that students who are performing well and exceeding can continue to have that recorded and shown, and they'll be able to have the material that they need to succeed. When we look at the placement distribution, we have 72% in the green, which would be students performing within their grade level expectations, and a very small number of students performing 2 or more grade levels below. When we break it down and look at each individual grade, we can see that we have nice high percentages across the board. This is probably a closer comparison to NJSLA, unlike the reading scores, because the iReady is only reading, whereas the state test is reading and writing combined. This is math, and this is every student in the district in that grade level, regardless of what class they took. So we're not pulling 7th grade and 8th grade advanced and honors math students out. This is the grade level as a whole. And we can see that we are having nice upward trends, and these are also improvements from where we were last year, with the green or the meeting or exceeding growing, and the red, which is the areas of concerns where students are below grade level, is getting smaller as we go. Any other questions about math before we touch on science? So we have our 5th graders and 8th graders taking the state assessment for science. The state was at a 27% proficient or advanced, because now we're not talking about meeting or exceeding. The state changes the terminology, they change the color, and we have 4 levels instead of 5. So what we're looking for in science is we're looking for proficient or advanced proficient. And our 5th graders are at 59% in the proficient or advanced proficient range. Interesting, both the state and our district remain the same as last year. The state remained at 27% and we remained at 49%. We only took this assessment we took it last year, which remained the same. And prior to that, we had taken it one time 2 years before, and it was a pilot year. So we don't have a whole lot of trending data to see how we're doing. At this point, consistent seems good. And we would, of course, like to see how can we make those scores grow and improve, but we are significantly outperforming the state. When we look at 8th grade, we can see that the state is at a 16% passing rate, and our district is at a 32% proficient or advanced proficient. This is a 13% increase for our 8th graders from last year, so it was great to see that improvement. And again, as in some of the other areas, the state remained the same. The state was at 16% last year, and they remain at 16% this year. It is a new assessment. It had a very rough rollout with the being very disjointed, and I believe the state as well as our district is looking at how can we improve this, and what flaws might there be in the assessment if we're getting percentages like this. One of the things we're doing again within the district is looking at how the state wants students to be learning science using a phenomenon-based material and thought process, and we're looking at what other programs, what materials can we provide to the teachers that they can give to the students to help guide them to what the state is looking for in this assessment. It is very, very heavy on reading, so students who are struggling in ELA would also then struggle in a science, this particular science assessment, the way it's structured right now. That would conclude math and science unless there's any other comments or questions.
Just a quick one. If you're an ELL student, you can't take science in your language?
Spanish only.
Okay, thank you.
The directions can be read in other languages, but we only have assessments in science, or excuse me, Spanish.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I will turn things over to Mrs. Beagle, and she will go over some of our alternative assessments.
So you know I'm coming out, and you know we're gonna take a little bit of a break here. Last year we did Shake Your Willies Out. I am gonna honor my friend Anthony, who's not here tonight, and I'm going to invite you all to stand up. And we're gonna do a little mindfulness. All right, what we're gonna do is you're gonna put your hands out. You're gonna take your one finger and you're gonna put it by your thumb. And what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Someone better be videotaping this for him. Breathe
Don't
in.
worry, we're on camera, Stacy.
Oh.
We are.
Breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Pause. And sit down.
I thought she was gonna say namaste.
I really don't. What were you gonna say?
I thought you were gonna say namaste.
Yeah. No. I really wanted to do. I actually had another song, but I couldn't get it up. That one that my granddaughter had. If anyone has little kids, the free song. Does anyone know that? Oh. Next year on my turn. All right. DLM. So DLM is our alternative assessment for our children who are most cognitively impaired. It is for more 1% of the students in the district. So I'm just going to put this chart up. As you can see, it is 13 children in the district have taken our language arts and math. But what I want to do is just talk a little bit about what the dynamic learning map is. It is an alternative state assessment for our children who are not being taught by the district curriculum. And it is for our most significantly intellectually disabled children. The children are assessed in math, language arts, and then science in grades 5 and 8, just as if they were in the general ed. The children are assessed on essential elements that are taken from the state curriculum. And then they are assessed on skills. The assessment reports that the teachers receive are then, the skills that are identified in there are then used to generate IEP goals for our children. The children, when they are assessed, they are put into 4 different performance categories. Emerging, approaching, at target, and advanced. What I have shown you up here are the children who are at target and are approaching. The children who are not at those levels, those are where we are looking at the skills, and then those are then identified as goals in the children's IEPs. The 13 children that were assessed this year in language arts and math, and then our 3 that were assessed in science, those also include one of our out-of-district students. Any questions? Do we need another mind break? Okay. So I am going to be presenting for Anthony Tumala. Anthony has taken over our multi-language learners this year. We're working together. So there's been a shift in terms of talking about our ELL, English language learners, to the terminology of using multilingual learners. So that is going to be something that we're going to be working on this year, just changing over that language. What Anthony wanted me to share with you is just a little bit of background about our multilingual learners. I know that both Sarah and Stacy talked about with their assessments about giving the assessments in Spanish. But Spanish is just one of our languages that our children are coming in. As you can see, we have a variety of different languages, and this is only a smidgen of the different languages that our children are coming in with that are identified as multi-language, multilingual learners. The other piece that Anthony wanted me to share with you is just about the years in the program. What Stacy or Dr. Brown and Mrs. Couch had talked about regarding our children that are being assessed in literacy and math in terms of where they are in the program. As you can see, we have children that are in our program less than 5 years. 1 year, 15 of our children. So when I'm going to present next about where they are with their access learning, you're going to see that we are going to have, in fact, I'm going to show you. We're going to have many of our children on the access learning that are just at the entering, emerging, developing, and expanding component of performance. And that is because most of our children are at the very early entry level of our program. And our children on the access, which is given at the end of the year, and it is given to access their language development. There are 4 areas that they are assessed in, and as you can see, it is reading, writing, listening, and speaking, and then each of those components are a percentage. So one of the things that we're very excited about is the sheltered English instruction initiative that we're moving forward with this year, where we have teachers at our 3 Bridges, at our White House, and our Hollenbrook School trained in terms of how to work with our multi-language learners in the classroom, so that the children in those classrooms are getting a separate class of just teaching language. But then those teachers that are going through the program also are instructed in terms of how to teach children that are multilingual learners. So we are really excited to see how these children are performing, both Mr. Tumalo and I, as far as our administrative goals, that this is one of the areas, this is one of our goals, that we are going to be using data to take a look at how our children are making progress through this program. So we're really excited. That is something that Anthony put a post-it here, very interested to see how our multi-language learners grow as we roll out this program. So we're very excited about it. Any questions? Thank you very much. Who am I turning it over to? Interventions. Yeah, thank you.
So we always want our students to improve, no matter what level they're at. We're always shooting for them to do a little bit better. So we have these current interventions in place. We're continuing to use the data conversation tool that we developed last year. We are analyzing the evidence statements from NJSLA, which breaks this information down even further, so we can look at it by specific standard and see exactly which standard students excelled at or are an opportunity for growth, and then address those particular needs. We have administrative goals for the entire administrative teams that are based on data for the grade levels. Our professional development is specifically tailored to address any areas of concern or areas of opportunity that we know in our data scores. And we have a literacy coach. We have literacy coaches K-8 in district for both math and literacy. And then at RMS, we have a separate literacy consultant from Rutgers that comes in a couple times a month to work with them additionally. We have iReady training that the middle school has used this year to increase the quality of our data analysis and introduce them to the tools that allow individualized instruction. And then we're using multiple measures to identify students for intervention and tutoring programs. So there's no gatekeeping score. We're looking at a variety of data sets in order to see who would best be placed in those programs. And then we have YMCA academic programs after school as well that are open to our students that meet the criteria, but then also students across the district as an enrichment opportunity. The biggest challenge we have with those last two is that just because we invited a student and they meet the criteria does not mean that they accept our invitation. These invitations are all voluntary, and some students accept them and they excel and they phase out of our program, and we have met their needs and they continue on with their class. And some students determine that this really isn't for them, and their families choose not to accept our invitation. So we're continuing to work with the principals and within the administrative team at the board office to come up with new ideas as to how to get more people to accept our invitations for these programs, because the students who do participate do show growth, and that's reflected in the scores that we showed you previously. Do you have any questions?
I have a question on that. What time of day is that offered? Is that more after school or can it be during the day?
We try multiple things. So we have intervention that is during the day. So that's our most accepted program, especially in the elementary buildings. We have them here and then we can serve them. Anything else, we have to have their parents either come drop them off or pick them up. We've tried after school busing. We've tried doing before school programs. We've tried after school programs. We've tried virtual programs. We've tried in-person programs. And we still have a fairly large population of people that choose not to accept our invitation.
Which has been the most successful?
I don't know about most successful. I can only speak for
most attended, I guess.
Most attended. For me, at least in literacy, the most attended one is the virtual Latera after school, and then our intervention program in school, especially K-5, is very well attended. Once they go to the middle school, that kind of interferes with their encores, and that's one of the most wonderful things about the middle school is their ability to make choices. And so the students and their families may select to take an encore rather than taking an intervention course, or maybe if they qualify for both math and language arts, then they can't take an encore at all, so they'll pick only one. So we've adjusted that program, and Mr. Charleston has assisted in building something new over at the middle school, and he's led that where we have an opportunity to have in-class support at the middle school and then an opportunity for pull-out if you qualify. So before it was either or, but Mr. Charleston's put a new initiative in place where you can get both. So at least then, if nothing else, we can see them while they're in the classroom. The trick with that is that as the students get as they enter throughout the year, then how to get them in those classes where there already is an interventionist set. But we're still continuing to look. We're talking to other districts and seeing what everyone else is doing, but they're all doing things very similar to ours.
Thank you.
Dr. Brown, I'll just add to that and say that this week we started our after-school YMCA academic programs, grades K through 5. Virtually all classes are full. We reserve 25 seats for students. Almost every class is up to 25 students after school in those YMCA programs. There was one, I think the Hollenbrook 4th grade, I think the writing after school enrichment course at the YMCA was the least popular, and that one's not running. But we found huge success and very, very good attendance in our after school YMCA club programs that have an academic focus. That's why we've done it again this fall, and we'll repeat again this spring too.
Just a question on the interventions, and I'm not sure, Dr. Brown, if you can answer this, or maybe it's Dr. Hart. Which of the interventions do we have built into our regular budget, and what is tied to like federal COVID relief funds?
I think we can both do this, but I'll say that The literacy consultant RMS that we had last year, this year is ESSER funds, correct, Dr. Brown? The YMCA academic programs are also ESSER funds that are built in with ESSER, but we may look for innovative ways to keep that going after ESSER expires. And Dr. Brown's Litera virtual literacy tutoring program is also built into the ESSER grant. Did I miss anything?
No, everything else, like our literacy coaches, the K-8 are building part of the budget.
Mhm.
Anything else? Then we'll move on to building areas of focus, and I will hand you off to Dr. DeRosa.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having us. So I will begin with a little look back in time. A year ago when we planned and analyzed the data, I was happy to see that there were no major areas of deficiency at White House School, but we chose challenge areas anyway. In mathematics, we focused on measurement and data analysis. And when we look to the scores this year, or the evidence statements, we see that we have shown improvement, so we're proud of that. In language arts, reading, and you heard a little bit about this from Dr. Brown earlier, informational text last year and this year continues to be a challenge for our students. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about that with regard to this year's plan. Giving you a little bit of background, when we built the action steps, we've been doing a lot at White House School. It's our 4th consecutive year where we've devoted some faculty meeting time to looking at data, analyzing it. We've embraced supervisors and coaches have attended some of our data days, as well as Dr. Hart. So we're continuing that initiative this year. It's also our 2nd year, and you heard about the data conversation guide, the 2nd year in a row that we're using that because it was developed 2 summers ago. We routinely look at iReady data and CPTs and on data days. And at Three Bridges, Kristen and I have for several years written joint SGOs, or student growth goals, with our teachers in grades 1 through 3 to focus on the iReady results. So we're going to continue with that. When we delve deeper into the White House School challenge areas this year, well, before I say that, the good news was students showed a lot of strength in the area of and literature analysis when they had to delve deeper into characters. Where the challenge came again was informational text. So when we looked at the evidence statements, we're finding that they're having trouble when they have to synthesize or take multiple sources and compare them and bring the information together. So coaches and administrators met. Nicole Maraventano has been wonderful. She's already been meeting with 3rd grade teachers and compiling sample problems and bringing resources to teachers so they can use it with their children. So they'll be given more opportunities at an earlier time this year to compare multiple texts on the same topic. So we think we're in pretty good shape. They're in 3rd grade, but what we're practicing with them are lifelong skills that will help a lifelong learner and a researcher. They're reading, comparing, reflecting, contrasting. In mathematics, similarly, Jody Rierick has been working with us, and we were excited in math because their area of strength, as you heard from Ms. Couch, was fractions, which was like, wow, that's amazing because that's usually difficult. So we think that the area of challenge, well, not that it would be an easy fix, but we will be able to target it. They were having more trouble with inverse operations with multiplication and division, which we'll have an easier time intervening in to boost them in that area. So it was, if you have to have a good problem, it was a nice one to have. So we've already begun the work, and we're going to continue throughout the year in CPTs and faculty meetings to keep data at the forefront of our discussion. Any questions? Great. I'll turn it over to the Three Bridges. Thank you.
Good evening. Let's see, I'm not sure what button to press. Thank you. Well, that kind of defines this evening. I'm Kathy Sikorsky, and I am here replacing, or, no, I'm not replacing her. I am representing Dr. Higgins. Please, that I could not do. As this demonstrated, our entire report this evening was a collaborative approach from Ms. Dr. Brown and Dr. Higgins. They offered me their insights, their expertise, and definitely their dedication to student learning. And what you're going to see today is really that collaboration. The ELA data analysis determined that the most powerful instructional focus for our ELA in grade 3 was compare, contrast, and reflect on 2 nonfiction texts with the same focus. The professional practice that took place at Three Bridges School was that the 3rd grade teachers and the literacy coach worked throughout the school year identifying the appropriate nonfiction texts for this specific instruction. Teachers also employed additional flash drafts in order to have students reflect on their reading through their writing. The results, through that hard work, students were able to demonstrate a 10% point gain for this nonfiction standard on a similar difficulty level, which outperformed the state. The mathematics data displayed an instructional goal for 3rd grade centered around modeling, reasoning, involving multi-step problems. Our professional practice was for 2nd grade teachers to participate in staff development in order to secure students' understandings in numbers and operations. On the end of the year iReady, 96% of our 2nd grade students demonstrated a secure understanding of numbers and operations. This impressive feat supported students going into 3rd grade for a strong mathematics foundation. The 3rd grade teachers also focused their iReady instruction on numbers, reasoning, and the multi-problem step problems. New Jersey SLA offered 7 questions in modeling and reasoning, and Three Bridges School outperformed the state in 5 of those 7 questions. Yay. So taking a look at our newest data, our professional practice was for the entire staff to be involved in the review of the assessment, the New Jersey Students Learning Assessment, because we're a team, and that communication strengthens all the way through the school. iReady results were reviewed by teachers and their coaches. Staff development and coaching sessions had focused on strategy groups for our students. Strategy groups allows for detailed, focused instruction right on the cusps of students' understandings and their independence. So once we can make those strategy groups of mathematics as well as language arts, we really can focus on detailed instruction. In ELA, Three Bridges School outperformed the state in every area. In order to enhance our students' comprehension, teachers will challenge students to deepen their understanding of the author's message through the analysis of mood, character interactions, and theme. We collaborate very well in
We
this
do,
district.
very, very well. You're on it.
And I'm demonstrating why I could never replace Dr. Higgins. Math. But I did write the words of this.
You did, you're doing great.
All right,
Go.
and TPS students demonstrated high performance across all domains. The teachers will continue to focus on modeling and reasoning multi-step problems. One of the things that I found was amazing, Ms. Pouch has heard this a number of times, is that the state puts out sample problems, and you can go on and take a look at the sample problems, and I did, and I showed them to my husband, which he was a mathematics person, and I said, this is just amazing. Well, what's amazing about it is that we can take those sample problems between the teachers and the coaches they can embed that into their instruction throughout the school year. It not only gives the students opportunities to really experience, learn, enhance, but they're doing it, they have to respond in a digital way, which will be difficult for me. They will solve and document their thinking digitally. iReady assessment showed that one of the greatest areas for growth was geometry, and Ms. Pouch had explained to me that geometry is closer towards the end of the year, that unit of study. The teachers and the coaches are again going to weave some of the geometry teaching throughout the school year, and we will be at the top of our game when it comes time for the assessment. Thank you. If you have any questions, please ask my friends. So, I think I go to you. Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. Okay, so when I looked at data last year, one of the interests I had was how does Hollenbrook students compare to the state average? And as you've seen all tonight, we should do better. I mean, we should, as the Reading district, do better. But I won't focus in on what they call evidence statements, and I was looking for areas where maybe we didn't do much better. And in math, I identified 6 areas, and in language arts, I identified 3. So this became my focus. I should say this is 4th grade I focused on. Working with the experts in our building, both the coaches that helped me out tremendously, and working with the teachers, our supervisors who helped explain a lot of the data I was looking at, because while I know the surface of what data is telling me, these guys really can explain to me what the questions are asking, how the questions are set up. So I focused in on 6 areas, and then Dr. Hart will tell you that we sat down, we discussed it, we said, well, let's see how we do a year from now on these areas that we focused, that we were way too close for comfort, in my opinion, to where the state scored. And on the next slide, I will show you the results of that, because I like numbers. The evidence statements, as you can see, are on the left, and then the scores, the state scores, our scores, that was last year, then the state scores and our scores, that's this year. But the column we really want to focus on is the change. And what I wanted to show you was not just how we changed, but how the state changed. Because if the state went up 50 points and we went up 30 points, and I only showed you us going up 30 points, you might say, that's fantastic, and then you find out, wait a minute, the state went up 50, not so good. So in the last column, all the way on the right, the state numbers are in parentheses. So on that one evidence statement question, the state went up 14 points, but we went up 40. The next 2 say an A, and unfortunately, Ms. Pouch had to explain this to me, that we don't get every question every year. So on the next 2 questions, it's a little frustrating, but we don't have evidence this year because our students weren't asked these questions. But on the last 3, they were. The state went up 0, we went up 3, the state went down 7, we went up 3, and then the state went up 6, and we went up 19. Now that seems really wonderful, and it is. I mean, it's better than me explain to you why we went down 19. But I have to caution you, this is 1 year's worth of data. And data, you usually want to look at 3 to 5 year trends to see how we're going, which is why a lot of the graphs you saw tonight did show you over time. So this is a very good start, and I was very intrigued by this. It gets a little more frustrating when we go to the next one. This is LA. So we didn't have 2 to 3 questions that I focused on, of course not. So the one we did, the state went up 1 and we went up 18. So yay for us. But it was very frustrating that we did a lot of work in this area and we don't have results to look at. So fingers crossed, a year from now, we'll be able to have these questions again, because they're going to continue teaching and focusing in on these areas like they did this year, and hopefully we'll have results to look at next year. I also want to just back up for a second. Up in that little paragraph at top, the overall average score for the state was for us last year was 757, and we went up to 764 as an average NJSLA score. And in ELA, we went from a 766 to a 770. In comparison, 5th grade, where I did not focus on anything, we went up 1 point in 1 and down 1 point in 1. I just don't know which is which. So that was our results. And maybe we'll talk about soon, and we're going to see where we go this year. And I believe I'm turning over to our very capable news. So, gentlemen, thank you.
How many of you are Yankees fans? Nobody? Mets fans? All right, thank you. I'm going to ask Larry to play Enter Sandman to get us up, because we are the closer of this presentation. This has been a wonderful presentation. Our colleagues are absolutely tremendous. The research, dedication, and expertise that they've shown you tonight are really second to none. Ms. Pouch, Dr. Brown, Ms. Beagle, our coaches, Dr. Hart, our fellow administrators have done a tremendous job, and they really help to dig deep into this data. When it comes to the middle school, there's some areas to really look back upon and be especially proud of, but there's some areas that we really need to focus in on just a little bit more. So last year in math, our challenge area when it came to iReady, when we were looking at all three diagnostics, was geometry. We did go up in geometry in iReady. And then through NJSLA, as Ms. Pouch expertly stated, we did go up in every single grade in exceeding expectations. In particular, I wanted to shout out our 6th grade, went up 14 percentage points. So math will be a huge hit. They're all areas of focus, just like we talked about board goals, right? This is our big area of focus this year, is math. In language arts, the challenge area was in theme. We saw that particularly in looking at the prior year's data of NJSLA. We really keyed in on that. We really honed in specifically on 7th grade. So the cohort in ELA, it was the largest increase year over year with students exceeding expectations, went up from 58% in 6th grade to 75% in 7th grade. I would say that our focus and the teachers' dedication and craft really helped our students in this. And theme went up 10% from 2022 to 2023. It is not a critical area of focus. You'll see a little bit later on. Just as Dr. DeRosa talked about informational text, while it's a issue and focus on in the younger grades, it's something that we want to focus on as well in the middle school. And overall, which is really something I think, having a kid myself in middle school now, scores went up. Are they where we want them to be? No. I want them to be higher. I want kids to do well, and be well, and achieve well. But this is the biggest cohort. This is the cohort that went through the most amount of school disruption at the most critical time and age. Our students now, they would have been when they were in that year of disruption, that first year, they were in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. They are now in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So they are now in the middle school. So we're seeing those exceeding expectations levels return back to pre-pandemic levels, and I'm looking forward to us moving past those levels pre-pandemic. I will also turn it over to Dr. Moss, who's here as well, and I can't do this work without Dr. Moss. So he'll talk about some of the things that we've done for a whole school review this year.
Thank you, Mr. Charleston. Good evening, Dr. Hart, Mr. Bowen, board members. I'm Jonathan Moss, the middle school vice principal. So we'll talk about a couple things we're doing in regards to whole school review. So we took a look at the start of the year NJSLA data as a whole school focus, and we went into admin CPTs for this. And I can remember this quote that Mr. Charleston said, that even though talking with all staff, they might not be directly related to that specific piece of data, all staff and all teachers are connected to that data. So we want all parties to feel ownership and a part of that conversation. And we thought that was a great way to kind of kick off the year and just talking about the importance of data as we go through the year. We have a concentration on strategy groups and small groups, and our iReady information gives us that for our staff to help them with that. As Dr. Brown talked about, we have our new intervention model, and she talked briefly about the combination of both a push-in model and a pull-out model for specific students. And that helps our students, as talked about previously tonight, if there's concerns about, especially at the middle school, our great offerings of encores, students being pulled out of those things for intervention, that now we ensure that they're able to have all those opportunities and still support students with the intervention model. We have sheltered English instruction training for our teachers at RMS, and our teachers that are trained do then turnkey it to other staff members. We provide instructional rounds for peer-to-peer modeling. Our teachers sign up to go and observe other staff members. We feel that teachers should always be lifelong learners and continue to see other staff members of different content and show their specific specialties on questioning and other specific strategies.
And like Dr. Moss was saying, that's something that we really believe at the middle school, in that we have so many different disciplines and content areas, but we all take an approach that these are all of our students, these are all of our numbers, and we all have a collective hand. The work of John Hattie talks about one of the biggest things that raises student achievement, and that's collective teacher efficacy, meaning the effectiveness and the ability of your teachers to reach students. So we truly believe that, and that every teacher has that ability to reach those students. So in language arts this year, we will be focusing again on with our literacy consultant and our ELA coach, with CPTs, during CPTs, about conferring and strategy grouping. And we're going to be addressing some things that we're seeing in walkthroughs of those concepts that directly impact informational text, those text-to-text connections, and really going through that. Math is a bigger area of focus for us, specifically 8th grade math, as we've sort of seen before. So we're looking at fractions and integer operations as two key areas to focus in on. We've offered some extra math help during lunch and during academic support, which is the time right after lunch. We do offer their iReady learning paths with students a couple times a week. Dig in a little bit through iReady, and that will help their teachers in terms of addressing their individual learning path needs in the classroom. We've arranged some co-teaching focus and opportunities for during structured prep times so that teachers have common planning time together to meet and for co-planning. This is also something that we want to connect our special education teachers who teach pull-out math classes to be connected with our math department to have some shared common language. And again, our focus is on 8th grade math this year, specifically on evidence statements. So we'll be doing some evidence statement analysis with our 8th grade teachers and incorporating some resources weekly. And our 6A math coach is going to be working with all staff on iReady, specifically our 8th grade math teachers, individual conferencing with students for goal setting. One of the other things that we're doing this year, we do have a new implementation model for intervention. We are doing some different implementation models of our standardized assessments as well too, which is a little bit different. Last year we did iReady. We had specific diagnostic days. If you have students at the middle school, you know now we're doing it for math and language arts. And we're doing some different implementations for NJSLA too to sort of spread that out because it is a lot of assessing and testing. And for those of you who have middle school students, we want to motivate students to do well during these assessments as well. So it's a true valid assessment for these students. So we try to, it's also about motivation, inclusion, and belonging in our school to make sure that students feel like they want to do and prepare and be their best when they have a chance to take these assessments. So I appreciate it. Thank you. Do we have any questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask the board while the administrators are here, are there any other concluding final questions or anything like that for the administration before we move on to our meeting?
I just want to make a comment.
Yes, please.
I just want to make a comment that I remember last year this presentation, which I think was an excellent presentation. It's extremely comprehensive. And last year the results were good, but this year it's really a testament to how hard everyone was working and making good use of like the ESSER money that you talked about, but also the commitment is very obvious. And I just really appreciate seeing these kinds of results because I think to me what's most impressive is the amount of time since COVID. In like 1 year, making that kind of growth is really exceptional. So it's quite obvious that people are working very hard, administrators all the way down to the teachers. And I also appreciate that just looking at the data clearly that you're seeing where the areas of growth need to happen. So you're not sugarcoating anything, but you're working hard at things, and it's just really nice to see. It's it's admirable what's going on in this district, honestly. So I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I second that, Camille. You said it way better than me. I was going to say the same thing. Thanks.
Can I just say ditto?
So and I see a lot of data they filled out the data conversation guide because they know it all too well. I'll just conclude by saying it's clear that there's no shortage of work to be done in the district in terms of academic achievement, right? And you've got a dedicated leadership team who presented to you tonight that are 100% invested in the success of every single student here at the district. They are to be commended for their hard work for the presentation tonight and making it as comprehensive as it is. And I'm very proud of the work that they've done as a team. And I have to say that as much as there's always work to be done, there is a lot of cause for celebration with the data that you saw tonight. You know, coming back from a once in 100-year global pandemic and the disruption of instruction, we knew was going to be no easy task. But we are well, and I mean well, on our way to improving the academic achievement of our students in the district. So I'm very proud of the work that we've done as a team. I want to thank my colleagues for being here tonight. I know that it's been, we started early, but it's still a late night. So thank you for being here. Don't forget, wear orange tomorrow, and it's a district jeans day too. So wear your jeans. That includes us too. Jason, you too, jeans.
She's known it.
I know, I don't know. I've never seen them. Thank you for all of your work. Very much appreciated. You are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but feel free if you'd like to depart. But thank you for being here. I conclude my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. We are now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Hindle. I have 2 children, both at RMS, and one that's long graduated. On the agenda tonight is the retirement of Paul Nigro, principal of Hollenbrook School at the end of the school year. This took me completely by surprise, but I have a few comments that I'd like to share. All 3 of my sons attended Hollenbrook School, my oldest 10 and 9 years ago, and my younger 2 just over the last 3 years. During all of their time at the school, I felt that Mr. Nigro was an excellent principal who created an environment that gave his teachers the latitude they needed to do what they do best, and to support them in their efforts to be amazing on a daily basis. In my personal experience with any inquiries I directed at Mr. Nigro, he was always responsive and supportive, and I appreciated his availability to address any and all of my concerns and my questions. Mr. Nigro, thank you for your years of service and support to our school district and our students' academic environment. Enjoy your final year with us. You will be missed, and I wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Wolf, anything online?
Nothing in the chat.
Thank you. All right, moving on to correspondence. We had 2 emails, JL regarding a topic on the agenda, and from KM, a media request. Moving on to board action, can I get a motion to adopt administrative reports 1.01 through 1.03?
So move that. Second, Carolyn.
Any questions or comments?
Okay, go you first.
I just had a quick comment on the drill reports, on the bus evacuation drills. I see some of the same trends report after report for the last time, so just wanted to ask or comment if the district is looking into different training or reminders related to bus evacuation drills.
So I think for the past 3 years, we've had feedback on bus evacuation drills. We have spoken to administration and staff that are in charge of that, and we've actually had multiple reviews of the data that's before you. So we'll circle back again and perhaps put more concrete things to make sure that better processes are handled moving forward.
Thank you.
I'll just mention that I put agenda item 1.02 district goals. It's basically, I want to draw your attention to it because it's the same presentation from last time. The only thing that I added was, as we continue to await final word about preschool, I added a slide just to mention that should we get the preschool funding, I feel strongly that that should be an area of focus for the district and the administrative team. So when it comes to goals and goals upon which you evaluate the superintendent's performance by the end of the year, that I think it's appropriate, if it's okay with you, we mentioned this last time, that preschool be one of those areas that you would look into for a district goal and for evaluation for the end of the school year. So I just wanted to mention that we talked about it. I just wanted to put it out there that it was on there as a possibility as we get final word. That's it.
All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Barron?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Ms. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Peach,
Abstain.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
passes.
Moving on to approval of minutes, can I get a motion to adopt 2.01?
So move that. Second, Carolyn.
Any questions or comments on the meeting minutes?
I just had one very, very minor thing. It was Mr. Home instead of Mr. Bohm.
I wasn't gonna call him out on that.
Whatever you want to call yourself.
We don't need to make a motion to amend that, do we?
I'll reflect it in the revised minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Betterman,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Ms. Menzer,
Abstain?
Mr. Peach,
Abstain.
Mrs. Bogorski,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf,
Yes.
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Ms. Campbell,
Yes.
passes.
Moving on to finance and facilities, can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 through 3.14?
So move that. Second, Carolyn.
And we have a committee report?
We do. The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, September 27th, and the first topic to talk about was the health insurance. Lou Della Penna and Jennifer Jadula from Brown & Brown Benefits Advisors were here. They introduced themselves and explained that they will work hard to provide us options for the health plans by February of 2024, and more information to follow. The next topic involved the 23-24 capital projects. It was an update. The RMS roof HVAC system, we received a ROD grant award of $220,000. This is state money that was will be awarded over the next several years to offset this cost. As far as the elementary bathrooms, the ROD grant was rejected. Regarding the Three Bridges school boiler, Unitep and the SSP architects, which is still in progress, and these documents are now being reviewed. In terms of the solar, on November 2nd, there will be a discussion following the Green Committee evaluation, and many maintenance projects have been completed. Regarding IT projects, all district phones have been enhanced with a new back-end platform to improve security. Switch upgrades and improved security cameras will be done over the next few months. The next topic involved the 24-25 capital project, which is the RMS main office. There's a construction map and a plan of action. We're currently in the design phase of this project, and there'll be more information to follow. Next topic included security, radio service by first responders, and the Township of Reddington. We're continuing our relationship with the town to coordinate security measures. Also, classroom phones will be available in the designated safe space in each room, and visual signage. Signs will be installed inside and outside of buildings throughout the district. The type of the signs and the locations will be determined. Next, we talked about refuse recycling in the township of Reddington. We will continue to have a conversation with the township to discuss possible options regarding refuse and recycling collection. We may or may not coordinate these services, and we'll have more information to follow. Next topic was the green coordinator position. From the stipend, we talked about the job description and related job descriptions. Currently, we have no green coordinator for the district. The stipend is $4,000 annually. We are reconsidering whether or not to change this amount if this position is a school-based position, which would be 4 staff, instead of a district-wide position of 1 staff. We also want to review the job description and possibly make some adjustments. The next topic was the SEMI program 22-23 results. SEMI stands for Special Education Medicaid Initiative. This is a mandatory program that we must participate in based on our number of eligible students. We currently have a corrective action plan in place to increase our revenue to meet the state-determined threshold. Next topics was included the architect fee proposal. The architect fee for the RMF's office is $285,000. Before moving forward, we need to better understand this fee structure. We will follow up and ask for a detailed explanation of this fee. Next topic was the IT grant and Chromebooks. We received a little over $68,000. We will receive this grant money to offset the cost of Chromebooks that we purchased a year ago. We have then talked about supply chain assistance aid, a little over $33,000. This money will go towards our food service program, including better food quality service. The next topic was the preschool education aid update. We applied for funding of about $1.6 million, inclusive of 3 provider partnerships in year 1, and we're still waiting to hear from the state. We then talked about legal services proposal update. The board will interview 2 or 3 firms tonight, in the near future. More information to follow. And then we planned our next meeting for November 2nd at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Dr. Sorciello. Any questions or comments on the committee report or the action items?
I just had a question for legal services, and I know we're interviewing 2 firms tonight. How many applied? Did more than that apply?
Do you have it?
Yeah, okay. I think we had either 6 or 7 responses, and we went through them at a series of levels. First, based on the actual written submissions and proposals sent, then at an administrative level, and this evening is at the board level.
It was 6.
Yes, that's what I have written down. But we had inquiries from several others who also did not submit proposals.
So six submitted formal proposals? Okay. So you and Dr. Hart you decided to eliminate the 4 or what?
So we had Stacy Beagle, Director of Pupil Services. Dr. Hart and I went through the proposals collaboratively. Stacy's department probably handles about 40% of the bills that come through due to the nature of her special ed students population. Dr. Hart and I share the remainder, and we all sign off on the legal bills. So therefore, our interaction with the attorneys are the greatest in the district. So we reviewed them based on our prior history of understanding of the firms themselves that we've worked with, their submissions and other evaluative criteria.
Thank you.
We used a rubric to evaluate each one. I believe it's in here.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Letterman?
I just had a question about 3.10, which is the amended coordinated transportation service from SCESC. I just didn't know what that means. It was to strike sections on public transportation and athletic field trips and charters. So is there any impact to us based on the removal of those sections? Do we rely on them for that?
So Somerset County ESC has basically disbanded their transportation department. That was reflective of the trouble of and the difficulty in hiring drivers. So they made that decision to basically not provide those services any longer. And they sold most of their fleet at public auction, which we bid on, but were not successful because their vehicles were pretty much brand new, but we could have got them on a discount given the long lead times. So the amendment that they're putting forth is required by the county. We have to submit 4 copies to the county office. And they're basically revoking those services to any district they provided them to. It doesn't impact us greatly because we had shifted away from Somerset County to Hunterdon County for when we had supports needed for transportation. But internally, we've done a lot for recruitment, and between that and Branchburg, all of our routes are pretty much covered between in-house, except for a handful that it makes more sense to actually have it outsourced and partnered with other districts to save money. So there's no real impact of this. This was kind of like a backup option we board approved for the past couple of years. in case we get a student moving to the district and we needed a transportation route for special needs.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Betterman,
Yes.
Ms. Fiore,
Yes.
Ms. Menzer,
Yes.
Mr. Beach,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogorski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Suciolo.
Yes.
Ms. Campbell.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to education technology, can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 through 4.07?
So move that.
Second, Carolyn.
And we have a committee report?
Yes, we do. The Ed Tech Committee met on October 11th.
I'm just getting coffee.
Okay, sorry, I didn't remember, I'm saying the buttons weren't pushed or something. Ed Tech met on October 11th. The first item that we discussed was the Fall Teacher Academy catalog. Mrs. Kreil gave an update on the Fall Teacher Academy. There are 21 sessions facilitated by teaching staff and administrators. The professional development sessions are aligned to the strategic plan. One difference this year is that staff members will receive one-to-one excused absence flex time on half-day teacher in-service days in February and May for every hour of Teacher Academy attendance. Next, we talked about updates to the professional development plan and mentoring plans with new standards. Mrs. Kreil also updated us. There were, I guess, state standards, new state standards that had to be met, so those two plans were updated accordingly. There were no substantive changes since these were recently approved. The changes were simply formatting on the professional development plan and frequency of mentor meetings on the mentoring plan, as per no state requirements. Next, we talked about the NJSLA results, which we saw the presentation here tonight. I just did a quick synopsis. Students have shown tremendous growth in ELA, math, and science, outperforming the state average in every grade level. These results also show that student performance has returned to pre-pandemic levels in English language arts and science in all grades and most grades in math. Dynamic learning map grades and multilingual learners also show tremendous improvement. The multilingual learner cohort, which has students cycle in and out, has seen a lot of flux over the past several years, so those results are not fully reliable. Next, we discussed curricular revisions. Sections of 9.4 standards, which included career readiness, have been updated in many, many of those curriculum documents that you all see to comply with CUSAC. I'm not going to go into every one because it is literally almost every curriculum document had changes of addition of 9.4 standards. While we were discussing curricular revisions, we had a board member question the book George by Alex Gino, which is an optional book in the 6th grade ELA curriculum. Administrators responded that George has been in the curriculum since 2017. Parents were notified in the beginning of the year that this book is available as an optional read, and they could opt out if they don't want their child reading it. The notification letter is posted on the Weekly Genesis. Several parents have asked to preview the book, which they did, and a book challenge would need to be submitted to remove this book from the curriculum. Lastly, we talked about the assessment calendar and NAEP. Dr. Hart notified the committee that our district was selected to take the National Assessment of Educational Progress. This is for 4th grade this year in math and English language arts. Only a handful of students will be asked to participate. The state will administer the test sometime between January 29th and March 8th. The assessment calendar will be updated to reflect this additional assessment. And then we set our next meeting for November 28th at 8:30.
Thank you, Mrs. Fiore. Any questions or comments on the report or the action items?
I did have one thing that I wanted to, on the 4.04, which is the screenagers, motion to apply for and accept the grant from the Reddington Township Home and School Association in the amount of $950 to be used for the screenagers film. I just wanted to say I thought that was such a lovely evening. This board put together the, why am I blanking on the name? What's it called?
Resolution.
Resolution, that's it. I was gonna say proposal. It's not. It's a resolution in August that just basically, and this was brought, up by several board members, and we felt it was a priority to really discuss and to encourage good cell phone or social media use. And so I just thought that was such a lovely evening. We had a lot of representation with the administrators. You know, we always would hope to have more turnout from parents, but those who came, I thought it was really lovely, and I just wanted to thank the administration for putting that together. So thank you, and HSA for supporting it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've had two like district-wide parent evening education events. One was the Welcome to Families back in August, and then this one. And while we hope for more attendance, they're kind of gradually getting better attended or more well attended as we repeat some of these events. It shows that there's some interest from our parent community and some of the things that we have to share. So that's really nice. Thanks. It was nice night.
Just being that we're voting on that curriculum, I think, and that book, George, was prior to probably anybody was sitting on the board when it was approved. The struggle with that book for me is the age appropriateness. It's about a 10-year-old child that is wanting to transition, a 10-year-old boy that wants to transition to a girl, and he's prepubescent. And we're having our students that are 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds read that book. And I just think they're impressionable, and I don't think students at that age should be questioning their bodies. So I don't know how familiar anybody else on this board is with that book, but it is part of the curriculum for 6th grade.
So just a question, you mentioned 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds, but it's the 6th grade book, correct?
6th grade English language arts, and it's an optional book.
And it is available in a 4th grade classroom, which I think I mentioned during the meeting.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add that, I don't have a problem with the book. But it is optional. I think that's a good thing. A parent is asked if they want their child to read it or not. And if we continue to just like diminish, the opportunities for kids, I think that's going down a slippery slope. That's a bad idea.
Any other, just one thing to weigh in, that the English language arts curriculum was approved by this entire board back in May of this year, as recently as this year, and it comes up every May meeting. And so, this is not the first time that we're seeing this, and obviously this book has been in the curriculum since 2017. So I just wanted to add that in there, that this was not a new addition to this. The changes in the curriculum in our meeting were for the 9.4 standard for career readiness.
But as a new board member, it's my first time reviewing all the curriculum.
And just as a clarifying question, parents do have the opportunity to opt out of the book if they so choose. Okay. Just wanted
It was
to-
in the letter that went out to parents in the beginning of the school year, and the book's name was specifically listed.
Thank you.
Generally, the administration, I think Dr. Brown updated the committee that it's a pretty popular book. It's something that we've received a lot of, I think she used the word compliments on rather than complaints or concern, to stick with the alliteration of the C word. So it's been a popular book. It's been in our curriculum since 2017. I'm not aware, and Dr. Brown, and you may not have this data, I'm not aware of any parents that opted out of 3 this year. Thank you. 3 this year have made that choice to have their children not read the book. Walk through a 6th grade classroom, kids read it, they tend to like it. It's a popular book among our students, both male and female. So that's just a little bit of information, and thank you for having our information, our data.
Just had a question, how often do we review and approve like new books? Because I can only remember one time since I've been on the board. And I always hear this book's been approved back then. Like how often?
When new books come up, so the board approves textbooks according to our policy, so anything that's considered the primary resource for instructional materials, that comes in front of the board. So the book George, for example, is a primary instructional material because it's in our book room, it's in the curriculum. That's something that you would approve. You would approve any and all textbooks. So that's as often as they come up, as often as Dr. Brown or the librarian or anybody in the language arts department identifies a new book that's going to be considered a primary resource, is as often as the board would approve that book. So if Dr. Brown found a new book that she wants to include in the 8th grade curriculum tomorrow, we vote on it next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like who's ever approving that book in the first instance has a lot of power, because then every year after that, you can't get it out without a book challenge. But that's my only comment.
In this instance, that was the Board of Education in 2017.
Yes.
Because it's a textbook. Okay, I just want to make sure that you're aware of that.
Just a quick question, in 2017, it was approved for 6th grade?
That's correct. That was the resolution.
Okay. It is available at Holland in 4th grade?
I can't speak to that. It might be.
Okay.
Classroom libraries are a totally different world. They are curated by the professional staff. HSA donates books. They bring books from home. You know, people donate books to teachers all the time. Keeping track of classroom libraries is almost an impossible thing for administration to do. That's really our professional staff that curate their own libraries worth of books. And there's a lot of different pieces of literature in there. But I can look into that. I can't verify that. I don't know if Dr. Brown can, but.
Because in that case, it would be very difficult for a parent to opt out.
If we can move on, unless there's a motion on the table, I think Mrs. Betterman, you had another comment?
I did, but it wasn't related to this, so if you want to finish this first. Okay. My question's gonna be easy. Really easy. I was just wondering for that NAEP, how are the students selected? Like, does the testing agency request a certain selection of students? I'm just curious, how does that work?
So from what I understand, they come in and NAEP are like soup to nuts. They come in, they bring all of the testing materials, they bring a laptop, computers, everything like that. Like they come in and sort of set up shop to do their assessment. I believe Sarah, I don't want to put you on the spot, I want to say randomized, but I'm not entirely sure about how they go about selecting their sample of students.
They just said roughly 50 students could be selected. That's all we know.
So they may ask us to pull a cross section when they get here, or they may,
They tell us who the random 50 students are.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Mrs. Betterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Mensah.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
No on 4.07, yes on the remainder.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
No, 4.07, yes to everything else.
Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cecile.
Yes.
Ms. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to personnel, can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 through 5.13?
So move Beth. Second Carolyn.
And we have a committee report.
We did. So the committee met on September 15th, and we discussed staff updates, the preschool expansion and personnel if funded, the human capital analytics and recruitment software, other personnel matters, and agenda items, including retirements and other personnel matters, regular personnel matters. Next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, November 1st.
Thank you, Mrs. Bogorski, easiest minutes ever.
I love being that, doing the personnel. Everything is confidential, so I can't say much. Short and sweet.
Any questions or comments on the extensive minutes or the action items? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Betterman.
Yes.
Ms. Fiore.
Yes.
Mrs. Mensah.
Yes.
Mr. Peach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Dr. Cecile.
Yes.
Ms. Sample.
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to communication, can I get a motion to adopt 6.01 through 6.04?
So move Beth.
Second Jennifer.
And we have a committee report.
Yes. The committee met on October 12th at 4 p.m.
We discussed the district currently utilizes Strauss Esme to provide suggested updates to policy that align with the NJDOE updates to statutes and codes. Some of these updates include changes in gender pronouns from his and her to their. A committee member raised concerns that these changes are substantive and it's not administrative, and the committee discussed options for handling. The desire to minimize risk, maintain consistency with the DOE, and to not increase the burden excessively on the superintendent who provides recommendations on policy updates to the committee was expressed. The majority of the committee members came together to agree that the use of nouns in place of pronouns can be done as much as practical, and one committee member advocated that his, her pronoun should remain in policy as it does today. All agreed that the review of this language and any pronoun references can be shared between the superintendent and the policy committee as future policies are updated. The committee also reviewed policies in anticipation of a DOE announcement on the preschool funding. If the district receives the state preschool funding, then the committee will suggest to abolish policy 2471, integrated preschool, as preschool will be integrated by definition in the same way all the district's K through 8 classes are integrated. The committee reviewed policy 5112, entrance age, and the entrance age was revised to be age 3 by October 1st of preschool year. This aligns with the requirement to be age 5, October 1st of a kindergarten year. The committee also reviewed a sample policy for preschool programs, which describes providing a high-quality preschool program, curriculum consisting of state-approved developmentally appropriate experiences, and enrollment procedures. For this year, if funded, the district would propose to enroll age-eligible students using a lottery-based system until such time that the district is able to serve all age-eligible general education students. Eligible preschool students with disabilities will be admitted into the appropriate program based on their individualized education plans and will not be subject to the lottery. The district may develop a priority order to enrolling students in the general education preschool program, including students who are eligible for free and reduced lunches, students who are currently enrolled in a preschool program at a school or approved provider location, and students who will attain the age of 4 years old on or before October 1st. The committee made suggestions to update verbiage to include confirmation that enrolling in preschool in the district would be making a commitment to a full-day program. Dr. Hart reviewed the communication plan, utilizing email blasts, social media posts, and lawn signs should the funding be received. The committee also reviewed sample calendars from Hunterdon Central, Delaware Township, and Flemington Raritan, as well as different iterations of a Reddington school calendar. Having received an email from a parent in the district inquiring about the observation of Juneteenth, the committee wished to explore adding another holiday to the calendar. With input from the administration and staff, it was decided not to make any changes to the school calendar at this time. Not all federal holidays are currently observed in the district, and in certain iterations of the calendar, adding another holiday would push the graduation date to the following Monday in June. With this year's school calendar, students will be off for the summer on the Friday Juneteenth is observed in New Jersey. The committee also discussed a valuable learning opportunity for students in school revolving around the Juneteenth holiday. Due to the Reddington News suspending publication, the district continued to explore different options to reach the community. Currently, Reddington is reaching approximately 40% of the town's citizens via email as their students and parents. Ideas were discussed to find the most effective and cost-effective ways to reach the balance of the town's citizens. Ideas include utilizing a PR consultant to provide guidance, collaboration on a bulletin with the township, targeted postcard flyers on our own, and utilizing the White House Community Board on Facebook. The committee discussed advocacy, continuing to advocate for pensions and other teacher retention strategies, and coordinating with central and sending districts. The committee also discussed legislation signed on July 3rd, 2023, revising NJSA 18A:30-1 and NJSA 18A:30-4, expanded the allowable use of sick time for school employees. Policy 3212 for teaching staff members and policy 4212 for support staff members have been revised to reference the revised statutes and the new policy and regulation guides. The committee will abolish policy and regulation 3432 and 4432 sick leave and replace with the new policy that aligns with statute. Agenda items would have been preschool policies if applicable, and then policy 3212, 4212, and the abolishment of policy 3432 and 4432.
Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, November 27th at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Wolf. Any questions or comments on the report or the action items? I have a quick question regarding the communication. What were we spending like monthly, and you might not know the answer to this, and I don't need it right now or anything, but what were we spending on Readington News? What was our budget for communication and what is it now without them?
So if we were going to run an article in the Readington News, they would accept our articles depending on up to a limit, two articles a month for free, so that was free of charge. But if we wanted to put an ad in the Readington News, there were certain cost structures associated with the size of the ad that we were going to put in the Readington News. Jason, I don't know if you have this information, but what's our overall newspaper advertising budget for postings in Readington News, Hunter Democrat, Courier News, everything else?
Yeah, our total advertisement budget for newspapers is around 12 grand. We historically have not spent a lot of money out of Readington News, but we started scaling that up when the township, it was known that the township was no longer going to be taking out a full ad. And to support them, we decided to do that. So that started being a couple $1,000s, but still a fraction of the overall budget.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Bevan?
Yes.
Ms. Dior?
Yes.
Ms. Benson?
Yes.
Ms. Peach?
Yes.
Ms. Bogorski?
Yes.
Ms. Ryan?
Yes.
Ms. Wolf?
Yes.
Vice Chair Seale?
Yes.
Ms. Am?
Yes.
Passes.
All right, any unfinished business? No? All right, moving on to new business, we have Green Committee minutes.
We do, everybody met this time, even the Green Committee. We had our first meeting of the year on Tuesday, September 26th. We talked about the strategic focuses that we're going to have for the 23-24 school year. So what we did was over the summer, board members and administration met, and we reviewed input we received from the Green Committee provided at our June meeting last year. We consolidated the input into several focus areas for this year, including the following. Continued focus on energy efficiency and the solar expansion project. Using nature and outdoor activities for health and wellness, as well as learning about the environment. Updating policies to create long-term focus and themes related to these items. Continuing to pursue sustainable Jersey certification and use of their resources. And then an optional item we have is to explore possibilities for food waste reduction. As we understand, there may be some things that come up throughout the year that might help us move forward with that. Team members provided their ideas on resources available through the township that could assist the district with action steps on these focus areas that I just mentioned, such as the use of open space trails, and there is a new digital environmental resource inventory that the Environmental Commission worked on and recently received an award for as well. So the action plan is under development by district administration to further define how we're going to implement the various focus areas. So then we talked about pillar 1, which is to reduce environmental impact and costs. The solar array expansion project is moving along. The goal is construction beginning in June 2024. Board members of the committee have reviewed competitive contract specifications, and the next step is to draft a request for proposals. Capital projects with sustainability focus were reviewed with the Green Team, and those include some of the ones we reviewed last month, White House School outdoor gardens, staff lounge updates related to wellness, RMS water bottle filling stations, and the RMS and Hollandbrook School LED lighting upgrades. A grant submission was completed for 2 electric buses with 2 EV charging stations. It's expected we will hear the grant decision in November for that. We talked about pillar 3, which is providing environmental.
We're just laughing at it now.
Yeah, right, I know. We keep trying.
We do, we try.
And we recycle our ideas each time, right?
Reuse.
Yeah. capitalize on what we've already done. Yes, okay, sorry. So pillar 3, environmental education. There are some upcoming events celebrating the Three Bridges Bioswale project, including a presentation at the Rutgers Environmental Stewardship Summit in October, and recognition at our November 14th Board of Education meeting. We talked about some grants and resources available, including Sustainable Jersey grants and EV charger grants or rebates, which both have November deadlines, as well as the options to use HSA mini grants and NJEA grants, which have ongoing deadlines that can be submitted throughout the year. Well, we also discussed some new business. Mrs. Freeman gave some updates on her Salem Oak that she and her students are growing. And we got ideas from the committee related to stewardship and farm to school food opportunities. The next Green Committee meeting will be Thursday, November 30th at 3:30 p.m.
Thank you, Mrs. Vetterman. Any questions on the green minutes? Any other new business from the board? All right, we are now open to the public. Anything on or off the agenda? Is there anything in the chat, Mrs. Wolf?
Nothing in the chat.
I'll save it for next time.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to interview attorneys for approximately 90 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action will not be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when the circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. Can I get that
So
motion?
moved, Beth.
Second, Carol.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Ms. Detterman.
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore.
Yes.
Ms. Benson.
Yes.
Mr. Beach.
Yes.
Mrs. Bogorski.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Ms. Wolf.
Yes.
Mrs. Cielo.
Yes.
Ms. Allen.
Yes.
Passes.
8:25.
I need a break.
Do you guys want a 5-minute break?
Yes, please.
Okay, so 8:30.